Welcome to IQ HitList Special. I'm Vishwa Sadashivan. IQ HitList Special is Inconvenient Questions, extended one-on-one interview that explores the views of an individual that you want to see. Now, my guest today is a man that many Singaporeans wish to hear from directly and want to understand better. Who is he? What's his motivation? He first entered the public stage as a Member of Parliament of the ruling party 34 years ago, 1980 to be specific, winning 84% of popular votes in his constituency. Over the years, he earned the respect of many Singaporeans for his straight-talking, no-nonsense speeches in Parliament, some of which challenged government policies and practices. He stepped down as a PAP MP in 2006. In 2011, he re-entered the public stage in what you may say was a very different avatar, as a candidate for the presidential election. He lost to the winning candidate, Dr Tony Tan, by a narrow margin of 0.34%. Last month, on the 11th of March, he held a press conference to formally announce his decision to contest in the next presidential election, which has to take place before August of next year. That's 15 months from now. This led to widespread speculation of his motivation for making the announcement, especially since the Constitutional Review Commission had just been convened to focus on the elected presidency. Former Prime Minister Goh Chok Tong had this to say about his friend from school days. His move was a calculated political gambit. I've known him for over 55 years. What he did was in keeping with his character. So what was the response from my guest? Chok Tong knows that when I fight, and that when I want to do something, I will do it. So what exactly does this man hope to do if he's elected as president? How does he plan to fight? Why is this mission so important for him? What drives him? What is his motivation? Who is he, really? That's what I hope to find out in the next 50 minutes. Dr. Tan Cheng Bock, welcome to IQ's
Thank you very
HitList
much.
Special. Well, you know, the first time I met you, got to know you well, or reasonably well, was in 1989. I don't know whether you recall.
That's a long time.
A long time ago. And in 1989, you came for the launch of our program, a youth discussion program called Contact Y. And you were representing the government, and you came in your capacity as chairman of the government feedback unit. And the discussion was very, very candid. If you recall, many of the youth who are mainly in their 20s, professionals and so on, they asked you very tough questions. They were not anti-government per se, but they were critical of government policies, some of the practices and so on, you know. And I noticed that you defended some of the policies, you explained some of the policies, but I remember it was refreshing to hear you actually acknowledge some of the points raised. Not necessarily agree, but you acknowledged it, right? But what surprised me the most was in a few weeks after that, in Parliament, you actually raised some of the issues that were raised in this program. And you said you attended this discussion, and the youth raised some of these critical comments, and you urged the government to pay heed because we can't afford to lose the faith of our young people, you know. And you were critical of some of the policies and practices at the point in time that would have incurred the displeasure of government. Now, what made you do that?
I think there is no hidden agenda. It's just a response. And that will be my natural response to people who give me the feedback unit, be it good or be it bad, because that's the role of the feedback chairman. And I remembered, I know it's a very long time ago, I think these young people, they were airing some of their views. And I thought some of these views should be reflected in the House. You know, it is very difficult to reflect views to the House and being readily accepted. Because I always feel that the emotional element is not there. In any feedback that when they give to our ministers and so on, sometimes they read it, I think they don't get the feel. So that's
why do you feel that they don't get the feel?
Because all on the written form. If I tell you I feel sad, but that sadness is not reflected in that paper. So that's why usually it's not only for the youth. I would sometimes try to let everybody in the house know that this is the condition of the ground. Because as a feedback chief then, the ground feelings must be reflected and no doctoring. I never doctor my feedback. So when the youth tells me some of their concerns, I think it is important, not only the ministers, even my own members of parliament, my friends in the house, should know that these are the feelings of the youth then. And I think it is, I'm quite happy to let them to share with them their concerns. There's not that I am doing it just for them. I think when I was in the feedback unit, that's how I handle my feedback.
Now, you have raised several issues, and you stood firm on several issues, which sometimes even had incurred the wrath or displeasure of Mr. Lee Kuan Yew. For example, when you stood firmly on the issue, when you stood firmly against creation of the institution of nominated MP, right? You were very firm against it, very virulent, so to speak. What was it about NMP scheme that you're so against?
You see, I always feel that I asked myself when the issue was brought up, whether this issue is in the interests of the nation or is it in the interest of the party? That was the first thing I asked myself. Because we are putting people in the house. And these are not elected members. They are nominated. That was, to me, is also wrong. Because I feel that they must represent a constituency. And there's no constituency for the nominated MP to represent. Then I also feel that they wanted to select people based on sectoral representation, which to me, again, is wrong.
Sectoral as in different professions?
Different professions and so on. And I said no, because in doing that, you will displease those who are not selected. And then it makes a mockery, for example, to have a trade unionist nominated MP. It looks as if that the unionist MPs, elected MPs, are abdicating the role to the non-elected MPs. So I think, for me, I believe that if the parliament is a political institution. So many of them told me that I don't want to be involved in politics. But I said, no, the moment you step into that house, there's politics. You talk politics. Everything there is politics. So I said, no, don't give me that as an excuse. You want to come to parliament, you come in the hard way. And I think it's also important because we cannot promote people who are scared of fighting. We want people in the house to really represent, who are people who will make stands. And the stand will be challenged, at every election.
Now, you have used the word fight several times, in your speeches and statements, right? You said you would fight, you'd be fearless in I'll be fearless in what I do. I will make sure that what I think is good for you people, I will bring it up. That is the role of the president if you are elected. I mean, in the last election, this is what you said. So you use terms like you'll be fearless, you will fight for what you believe is right. Now, that sounds fairly combative. That sounds like you are preparing for a fight. You feel that there will be a fight. But at the same time, you have also said, and I quote you, I always have this vision that the president and parliament should work very closely. None of us should be combative. I shouldn't go into the presidency with the feeling that I'm going to do so many things. I'm going to witch hunt, check on this, check on that, and so on. So there seems to be a little bit of a contradiction here because you use the term fight, you use the term I'm going to be fearless, which means that you are anticipating a fight, yet you're advocating a less combative relationship between the President's office and Parliament and I believe the Cabinet. How would you reconcile these two?
Well, I think those words I use, I would like to describe as a carried over from my parliamentary days. You see, there's a difference between a parliamentarian and a president. Perhaps I was very carried away because as a parliamentarian, I got to do the right things. I got to bring up issues, I got to challenge the government, I got to challenge the ministers. So maybe I was still very... I was still in the old mode.
Old mode.
But I think what I did in Parliament, I'll bring it along to if I become president. But my parliamentary work and my parliamentary skills and so on will not define the president.
What do you
because
think
the president,
will change?
yes.
What is fundamental that you think will change if you were to become president?
Because you have to follow the Constitution. When I was in Parliament, I followed the Parliament way of life. But when I'm as a president, I have to follow what is in the Constitution. And that is to look after the reserves and to make sure that I get people capable to look after the reserves. So it's a different thing, you know. So you cannot don't define me by my performance in Parliament to be a president. I think it's a different thing.
It's a different thing.
A different thing.
And
I agree with you.
Which is why I'm seeking the clarification, because there seems to be this contradiction, but you're saying that it's probably your past vocabulary that's coming back.
I think it's difficult for me to change because there's a carried over.
For 6 terms.
Yes, 6 terms in the House. I've been doing this all the time.
Yeah.
So my choice of words may not be so proper.
But what you believe in more, you're saying, is that you believe that it should not be a combative relationship.
Yes, I fully agree. I think it's very important because if I enter into the office of the president and start making life difficult for everybody by asking all interfering, I think this country will go to naught. It will collapse because we will always be quarreling. But I think the important thing is that I will have to go into the House, work according to the Constitution, look after the reserves, and also make sure that the people who are looking after the reserves are the right people.
But therein perhaps lies the concern in some quarters, perhaps in government, right? Because you have used fairly strong language in your last campaigning, like fight, fearless, and so on. You may have inadvertently presented yourself as a combative candidate, right? Now, if I was the government, you can't blame me for being very concerned that if this chap becomes a president and this is the kind of language and this is the stance he's going to adopt, then we're going to have a tough time because it's going to be a combative relationship. How would you respond to that?
No, I would still feel that, no, they shouldn't define me that way. I think that is very close. They should be more open.
But can you blame them for feeling that?
I don't think maybe the language, of course. Mm-hmm. But they know my style. That's my style. But I'm also very reasonable in Parliament. I've also supported many issues. So it all depends on the issue again. Let's say in Parliament, let's say let's say if the reserves were being asked, or not even asked, or just taken out, without, say, the president knowing, I cannot be so gentle, right? I would definitely want to query. But I think they shouldn't label people so fast.
Do you think you've been labeled?
I'm sure I'm being labeled.
As what?
As being aggressive, combative.
And you believe that if you are elected, that's not what you'll be?
I wouldn't be combative. I wouldn't be aggressive. I'll be very reasonable unless they're unreasonable.
Are you saying this because you're on camera?
No.
Is this truly how you feel?
That's how I feel, and I will conduct myself in the office because the most important thing is the interest of Singapore. Yeah. The people of Singapore cannot suffer. Can you imagine the government and me quarreling all the time? I feel sorry. I think this country will be in a big trouble. There will be no progress. whole life they bring something forward, I'll be challenging them. No, that will never be my style.
And it'll be a gridlock. And
Yes.
anyway, you do not have the powers.
Yes.
Which is my next question, right? I mean, in the last election, if you realize, presidential election, several candidates, right, had said, we are going to challenge the government, we're going to change this, we're going to change that. But it really sounded somewhat ridiculous at some point because the president...
I never say that.
Yeah, you didn't. But what I'm saying is,
Yes.
people need to be clear, candidates as well as the public needs to be clear. What exactly are the powers vested in the elected president, right? You've got the discretionary powers that you can use, right? In protecting the reserves, in the appointment of public servants, senior public servants, right? And so on. These are very specific powers that you have at your discretion, right? In most other areas, you do not have.
But there are soft powers that the president can use.
So what are these soft powers?
I think the president can warn the people. I can report. I can warn if there's some wrongdoing.
And how would you know that?
Of course, because I think the president has privilege to read all the cabinet papers.
Okay.
You see, and also the policies that are put forward. I'm sure I can know what is really good for the people and not good for the people. But having said that, I think if I know something is wrong, there are many ways of skinning a cat, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can be very open and be confrontational and tell you this is terrible. But I think I bring with me a lot of experiences, not only from parliamentary experiences, corporate, banking, that will put me in a better position to look at the issue and maybe discuss with the minister in charge of that policy and talk to him.
But earlier on, you said that you have soft power and you illustrated it by saying that you would warn the people. But what did you mean by warn the people? How would you warn the people?
I have to make a statement.
But if you make a statement in public, are you not being adversarial?
Nope. That statement will be made after my consultation with the
So
minister
if you're
concerned.
what you're saying is your first line of action would be to consult and discuss with the minister.
That's right. And if he's still very firm and doesn't want to change, and I see that the policy is not very good for the people, I have a right to at least warn the people that I don't agree with this policy.
If it's fundamental,
yes,
you would, if you're president, exercise that right.
Correct.
Even if it ends up in an adversarial relationship with parliament and cabinet.
I suppose if you come to that position, you got no choice,
So that's the key.
But that would be a very rare.
Yeah.
I don't think that will. I think that is very, very rare.
So by and large, if I understand you correctly, what you're trying to say is, by and large, you would seek a non-confrontational,
Yes.
non-adversarial
That's
relationship.
right. I think that's important.
Mutually supportive.
That's very important.
However, if push comes to shove and you believe that it is in the interest of the
people's
nation,
interest is compromised, then I have to side with the people.
but that's your judgment.
That's my judgment.
And how would you exercise that judgment? Unilaterally?
No, I think I'll have the team of people.
CPA.
Yes, and I will seek
Council
the
of
advice.
Presidential
Council,
Advisors.
yes.
What do you think should be the relationship between the council, the CPA, Council of Presidential Advisors, and the president?
I think it would be very correct. It must be a very correct relationship. That means I want to make sure that the composition of that commission will be a fair one, and that is not one-sided. And I like to believe those people who are appointed are capable people. And as a president, I have to heed their advice. There's no doubt about it. In fact, I honestly, I don't think I can go against Parliament on many issues.
Yeah.
I can only advise them.
Yeah. You don't have the powers to do that.
I don't have the powers. And if Parliament were to fund the bills I don't agree, I just have to ask them to read again. I send it back, I don't give their assent, they send it back to Parliament read again, and if at the end of the day, they still throw back to the President, it shows that they don't agree with me.
Yeah.
So I have to judge whether this require me to say something or not.
Yeah. You know, one of the things that could be said, because you're so direct sometimes about things, and even not just as an MP, but even in your last presidential election campaign, you were quite blunt about certain things, what you believe, what you disagree with, and so on. There were some statements that suggested that you are very good in playing to the gallery. What's your response to that?
No, I think that's all labeling. That's a fear. I think we shouldn't label people just because you have differences.
Yeah.
You must distinguish what I have a different opinion from you. But when you make statements like that, I can't challenge statements on. I label you.
But what do you think,
must give me reasons why I'm playing to the gallery.
why do you think that statement was made? That
I don't know
suggestion
what
or
I
description?
don't know what I can't remember which one.
I mean, it's not something in the public domain, but there was also talk about he's playing to the gallery.
Oh.
Even in your press conference last month, right, March the 11th, where you announced your intention to contest, there was suggestion even by a good friend, former Prime Minister Goh Chok Tong, that it's a political gambit. So there's all this suggestion. It's not necessarily
A political
criticizing
gambit
you.
is not playing to the gallery.
Yeah, but there's this suggestion that you know exactly how to. In fact, there was a suggestion that you are politicizing the campaign. Now, what do these things mean? What does it mean by you're politicizing the campaign?
I think it's the choice of words. I never politicize it because the president is apolitical.
And you believe that it should remain apolitical.
It's apolitical, but it's very dangerous for them to say it's to politicize the presidency. I never politicize. So the words didn't come from me. It's come from them. Okay, I don't know who these people are. But I think it is important that the position of the president and the government must be very clear from the beginning. During my last parliament presidential election,
In
a
2011.
minister in 20, actually told, you see the press, that the government will deal with whoever the president is elected accordingly. That means if you don't like me, then how? So that is a stage if you start. I'm not being confrontational. It's they who want to be confrontational. That's very dangerous.
Why do you think, Dr. Tan, why do you perceive that the government doesn't like you?
Well,
Why do you perceive that?
I never perceive it. I think
What do you think is the government's orientation towards you?
perception is by. I think they know that when I see something is wrong, I'm going to tell you. That's very simple.
What former PM Goh Chok Tong said about you, described about you? When you
being
believe
honest.
in something, you say it.
Yes, I'll be honest. And if I find something that is not correct, I'm going to tell you. I don't want to let the wrong go unquestioned. I will have to tell you. And that's exactly what we should do. It is no use going to be a president, see something is wrong, and just don't say anything. I just can't imagine. I'm not that kind. Because I always have this fundamental principle that something is wrong, you must correct it. And the other thing is, I must look after the people. It's not playing to the gallery. I have always done it since my days as a doctor, since my days as an MP. I've always asked myself, is this in the interest of Singapore, of Singaporeans? And if it's in the interest of Singaporeans, I have to stand by them. It's so as simple as that.
Okay, so yes, if it is not in the interest of Singaporeans, of the people, and as president, your interest is no more in the constituency, it's the whole country.
Correct,
right?
yes.
The question that's being asked, the question that's often come up is, yes, that may be well and good, but as the president, elected albeit in Singapore, you've got very limited powers. You mentioned just now soft powers. But really, how do you believe that the president can look into the interests of the people? And is that your job? Isn't that the job of the government?
I think it's shared.
So
I cannot say that I have no role.
okay.
I just can't imagine I have no role. That's pretending.
So what is your role?
Because
And how is
you're
it different from
elected
the
by
government?
the people. If you're nominated, it's a different issue.
Yeah.
But the moment you're elected, you have a responsibility. But because you are bound by the Constitution, I cannot work beyond those beyond the Constitution. But still, I think I have a duty to let the people know if anything is not proper. That's so simple. I don't see it. I can't imagine a president sitting there seeing so many wrong things and just letting it go. I think I know my role. My role is very small from the Constitution. Very narrow, clearly defined. But having said that, I think the soft powers, as I said, has occasionally come into play. And I think it's very rare. But don't let those things define me, you know. I think that is wrong.
Those things meaning?
All those things I've just said, you know.
The occasions where you may have to.
Occasional when I have to air out.
So you believe that such occasions would be rare or perhaps may not even happen?
Yes, right.
Right? But that would suggest that you have faith in the government.
Yes, I do have faith in the government.
On what basis is that faith in the government? Because you have always said...
Yes, I think if the president and the parliament can work together very well.
Yeah.
I think Singapore will be a very good example for many countries. That we can have two camps, but having differences occasionally, but having a simple common goal. And it's not easy to work in the beginning because I got to create the trust. So as the president, I have to actually win those who are governing and those who are being governed. I got to find a common stage for both. So that, I feel, is the role of the president. The president must ultimately be the unifying force. Doesn't mean that I have to just be looking after just the interests. Because our country is multiracial. And I'm a very strong believer in multiracialism. And with all these happenings around the world, I always feel that the president will play a very important role in future.
How?
We have to promote all this togetherness.
Which your position, the Constitution provides for, right?
Yes, you must. Because you've got new citizens coming in, you have got, all these are new players. So I think as a president, you've got to actually win everybody together. And if the government is good, and the policies, let's say my first year in office, and I see nothing wrong, that the government has done a very good job, I think I have to praise them. I'll even issue a statement and say, look, don't worry, Singaporeans. They have done a good job, and we should go along with them first. But of course, if they've done something wrong, I also have to similarly say the same thing, issue a statement. But I think these are rare. These are all rare.
What do you think would be the three key strengths of the government today that you believe, if you're elected as president, you would seek to enhance in your role?
I want more transparency.
Okay. But you believe there's already
I think there could be more.
Okay.
There could be more transparency.
Why do you say that?
I say that, I give a very simple example, the hepatitis C incident. I think there's not enough transparency.
And you're a doctor.
I'm a doctor, I know. So I think that is a very important thing.
Could you elaborate on that? Because it's a strong statement you're making, that there's not enough, there could be more transparency. Well,
because if the disease was discovered in April,
yeah,
and you announce in September, there's so many months. And as a doctor, I have 2 weeks. If I see an infectious disease, I have to quickly report within 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And here, I don't know, they might have reported, but it didn't come out. We don't know. So this is what I mean. There are too many gaps. There are too many questions.
So if you're the president today, what would you do?
I'll probably ask the Minister of Health why you do it.
And
they have to give an explanation.
If the explanation is not satisfactory?
then I suppose I have to say that is not a good answer.
And who would you say that to?
I think if I were to tell the minister that I don't quite agree with him, I think that's sufficient for the whole Singaporeans to know.
But that's
my
between
stand.
you and him. But you said earlier, if you feel that this is something
But
fundamental,
if I find that there's something, I will have to report.
something that is negligent.
Negligent. And
It's not just a genuine mistake,
yes,
but it's a
not
negligent.
something I have to report. That
And
is
you will.
reporting. Yes, I should.
Yeah. But what if in the process of reporting you're seen as being adversarial?
No, I don't think that's adversarial. That is actually notifying that this is not done correctly. Because in the interest of Singapore, this could have spread more, we don't know. It may not be hepatitis C, how do I know? There are many other things we don't know. So we want to get the motion correct, the manner in which you conduct your affairs correctly. In other words, every stage must be explained.
What are the other two?
Which one?
I asked you to highlight maybe three. What are the other changes? Because your slogan in the last election was vote for change, vote for me. So what's the change you'd like to see besides transparency?
I think the other thing is I have to make sure integrity is there too.
Are you suggesting it's not?
No, I'm not saying that there's no integrity. I think I want it to be. I want to question if certain process is not very correct. I give it another example of the 5 boxes that were missing in my presidential election,
2011.
2011. Now, I have a right to question. Singaporeans have the right to know. So, because that affects the integrity of a whole
Or perception
system.
of integrity.
Yes. And if this is not corrected, all that we have worked for so many years, I think will go to naught. It's not very good for the country. So it is important that the Singaporeans must know that, well, there's integrity here. It was just a lapse. But I have to make sure. But if nobody question, it will just be just like, just pass by. And I don't think it's good for us. Because one day somebody will dig it up and say, why you never question all this? These are things I think very important.
So what you're saying is each of these actions where there is even a hint of or question of integrity, even if it's just a perception, it needs to be addressed.
It needs to be addressed because we have pride ourselves as a country where we value all this integrity, independence, and just now we were talking about what? Transparency. We cannot just talk. We must have action, and we must be confident enough to tell them that, look, this is the situation. There's nothing to worry.
What's the third factor?
Third factor. Change.
That you want to see change.
Oh my goodness! Let me think. I just suddenly we were talking
in the area of multiracialism.
Oh yeah, You see, I think multiracialism is so important to me because I studied in Radin Mas School. It's a Malay kampong, and we all enjoy each other's company. We're all colorblind, and then now I also worried because the world is changing. People are questioning, people's religion and so on, and the race. So I think I would like to make sure that I will be a person that they can come to and talk things over if anything happen. I don't want to take it for granted. We have to work very consciously and very effectively.
Would you say, the government has been paying a lot of attention.
Yeah, that's very good. I must say that's
so
very good.
What would you change from what is being practiced right now?
No, doesn't mean I have to change, but maybe I enhance it. Probably enhance it. I will promote more. I will reach out to more because I can also help the government. Doesn't mean that as a president I must be there just to challenge everything. If the government has very good programs, I'll be too happy to work along with them.
What do you, if you go back to the presidency, right? What do you think would be the 4 or 5 fundamental qualities that an elected president or a president should have?
I think the most important thing I feel is independence.
Okay.
Because he cannot be beholden to any political party. He cannot be, he cannot just, because if you're not independent, I can't imagine when the issue comes to me, I'll have a very clear judgment of what I want to say because of my attachment, let's say, to a political party. That will cloud my judgment.
Do you think there is an expectation of a certain residual attachment to the PAP since you had served 6 terms as a PAP MP?
Yes, I think I would say that is not a disadvantage.
What is not a disadvantage?
My association with the PAP before. I don't think it's a
But
disadvantage.
do you think today, in the last election, presidential election 2011, you had projected yourself as an independent.
Yes.
And you've moved away from your association with the ruling party.
Correct, yes.
That you were a member of and a loyal member of for a long time, committed member. Do you think that might be part of the problem?
They might see it's part of the problem,
Why?
not me. Well, because there is like a tacit understanding that if you belong to the PAP and you want to do anything, you got to seek permission.
Okay.
But I can't imagine me wanting to be a president, having to ask my party, my former party, that, excuse me, I want to be a president, can I resign? I don't think that's in me. And how would people in Singapore react if they know that I actually sought permission from my party to stand as a president? I think I'll be ashamed. I can't do that. So that's why I have to leave. And it's sometimes very disappointing that some of the PAP people think that I'm a traitor and so on. But I'm serving the country.
Are you a turncoat?
No, I'm serving the country. I have a right to serve the country. I have done my best for the party, but I also want to do more for the people. And I think in the capacity of a president, I can also contribute effectively.
What are the other qualities that you think of? So one is independence, you said, is the most important. What are the other qualities?
I think in integrity.
Okay,
Integrity is very important.
Yeah.
Independence, integrity. I think these basically are the very important.
But you've also talked some time back about being a unifying factor.
Oh yes, I just mentioned to you.
What does that really mean?
Like I said, this is a multiracial society, and I think I want to play that role. I think it's because in the last presidential 2001, before the presidential election, I moved around. I went to the ground. I watched all the election rallies, opposition, PAP, and so on. And I found that there's a lot of disunity, that people seem to be like so like it's all fraction, you know.
Fragmented.
Fragmented and so on.
What do you mean by disunity?
Well, everybody seems to be moving different directions. Maybe it's policy. The political parties are having different ideologies, different manifestos and so on. But that is during the political arena fight. But at the end of it, we should all sit around together. Don't worry whether which political party you belong to. We should also be friendly, understanding, and occasionally meet and talk, and no problem. But I did it, you know.
You've always had a good relationship with Mr. Cham Si Tong.
I have a good relationship with everybody. Cham Si Tong, Lau Tia Kiang, Sylvia Lim, everybody. But one interesting point I want to highlight is, after my last presidential election, I gave a post-party dinner. Mm-hmm. And I made sure all the political guys or different political parties all sit around one table and let them see how they react.
You mean mixed? Different parties?
Yes, very mixed.
Okay.
But it was very interesting because at the end of the day, one of the chaps from, I think, Workers' Party I mentioned, he said, you know, Doc, you're the only one who can get me to sit here facing a PAP guy and having a dinner, to me, I think it's very good. Because this is what we should do. After the event, after all the political, all the fighting, we should be able to enjoy this sort of relationship. That's how we build unity, that's how we build a nation. Doesn't mean that every time you belong to this political party, you're not with me, you're against me, and so on. But every one of us got differences. Let us express our differences. And I always believe it's through all these differences, we finally come to a good answer, good solution. Because if you only listen to your side, then it's not so good, because you have no monopoly of ideas. There's always, you got to share, learn from each other. So I feel that I'll try. I know it's difficult, but I won't use it as an excuse for not trying. Because, as I said, we must maintain. Many people take multiracialism for granted. Don't. I think cannot. We have to really stress very strongly on that issue. And I'm sure the government has done good. And I'll go along with them. We will work together because we're building this country. So they shouldn't take the president as somebody who's coming in just to make things difficult for them. I got a strong feeling sometimes they fear me because they think I'm going to question them on everything. But they should know I've been in Parliament for 26 years. I have also supported many things. I've defended some of the issues very strongly in Parliament. And that's it. I think they shouldn't. I think we can work together. And I'm sure if we work together as a team with differences, coming to find good answers for the people, that is the way we will develop a very good political system here.
What would you say, we're coming to the end of the interview, what would you say are some of the concerns? I mean, you said you walk the ground. Could you highlight what you consider some of the major concerns of Singaporeans today? Maybe 3 most important concerns.
I think healthcare.
Okay.
Healthcare, our aging population, and I think basically these are the 2 current. Of course, the jobs, the small and medium-sized industries. But healthcare is going to be a very big and important factor for us, because the aging population, new disease pattern coming up and so on. And the cost is very high. Yeah. And I think we don't have the sufficient institutions to take care of our old, because I want to believe that this is what I would advise the minister, for example.
You're talking about step-down care.
Yeah, all this step-down care, because I'm in health, I know very well. For example, I would advise them, don't build so big hospitals. Why you build such big hospitals with so much connectivity? If there's a infectious disease, they will spread. Yeah. Because everybody walk into your hospital in and out.
The same air.
I would like to have a smaller hospital, standalone hospital. That's the best for the country. More, better. And I would like to look into our financing. I always believe that we depend too much on the CPF to finance our healthcare system. Everything, don't worry. You got CPF, pay. So we are only chasing costs. We are not containing costs. So these are the things I'm concerned. Step-down care is a bit not enough. Long time ago, we realized there's a fundamental shift in healthcare. If that be the case, because we put too much money in institutional care. We have forgotten the what they call the outlying care, or the preventive health care. So your health care, this old folks,
aging issues.
But the other one is the youth, the media. Young people using the media. How do we help them? How is the government going to do it? I see there are a lot of programs coming out, and I think that is the right direction. You have to, but that doesn't mean you curb them so much.
But these are all highly complex issues that not only the Singapore government, but I would imagine that governments all over the world are grappling with, right? So you're right. I think these are definitely issues that keep the government, rightly so, awake at night. The question is, as the president, if you are elected, what do you think is your role in contributing?
I think I can give them inputs, because sometimes you get an external input is very useful. I like to believe that, because sometimes when I talk to my men, suddenly somebody come and tell me, hey, this is the way things to be done. So you must be prepared to listen, prepared to get advice. And as a president, if I see something I can contribute, I will tell them. Doesn't mean every time you talk to a minister, you call a minister up to talk, is always during bad times. I think that's the worst. When you want to discuss things, always make sure that the mood is correct. There's no issues. So when you talk, you somehow or other you're able to put across some of your points better. That's my philosophy. When there's a big issue, I don't come, okay, now we talk about this. I think that is wrong.
So, Dr. Tan, maybe as a final wrap-up question, it's more personal. What do you think could you give me an example of an event, an experience in your life, perhaps in your earlier years of life in school, that has shaped the way you think and do things? I mean, for one, I know that you were a scout, a very committed scout for a long time. And I remember some time back, you and former Prime Minister Goh Chok Tong talking about how scouting has actually shaped the way you are, the person you are. So could you highlight something that is significant?
I know where you're coming from. I like to believe that it was an event that shaped my life, not so much my scouting days.
Okay.
My scouting days was fun and was very good. But I remembered when I was in RI, at the age of 16, my father passed away. Now that was very traumatizing. But something cropped up. Actually, I wanted to leave RI. I want to leave school because we have no money. But then I discovered when my father died, he was entitled to a gratuity fund from the Singapore Harbour Board. So that was about 28,000, I remembered. So, I went to the unions, to the Harbour Board union, and they threw me out. They said, look, your father is in arrears, so therefore he's not entitled to this money. Then, but I know, when you're young, you don't even understand the word arrears, you don't know what heck is happening. Then I went and checked. He said, hey, actually, I found my father got the receipt, the last receipt, so he can't be in arrears because I sought the advice of my uncle and my friends. But then I went back, they said, no, we changed the constitution, your father's sum has been cut to 14,000, and anyway he's not entitled because he didn't pay the other dues. So I went to RI, I went back, I wanted to see it, I wanted to leave. But fortunately in my class, there was a gentleman called Peter Chua, whose father was Justice Chua. So I consulted, he brought me to see his father, and his father was very kind, taught me how to go about it. So he advised me to go to Legal Aid Bureau, so I went to Legal Aid Bureau. But that period of my life was very taxing. I have to meet the unions, I got to go to...
At the age of 16?
I got to go to the Legal Aid Bureau, and nothing came out. And I was running round and round. And my mother was asking me, what's happened and what's happened? And I got to give tuition, I almost failed, I think, my exam, but thank God I'm quite good in passing exams, so I passed. But to cut the long story short, I asked very direct question to the Legal Aid Bureau and also to the unions. The unions wouldn't tell me anything. Because I discovered the union was actually the secretary, the general was Jamit Singh. And Jamit Singh and Lee Kuan Yew, they're all very good friends and so on. I'm not saying there's sometimes some collusion and so on. But I couldn't break through. Then one morning, I read in the papers that there was a breakup in the PAP between Berisant, and then once Berisant Socialism wanted the PAP. So I said, maybe I don't have to run so much really.
Well, what is the lesson you learned from all this?
The lesson was you've got to be determined, you've got to do what you believe in, and you've got to work hard at it. There's no way out, and you cannot depend on people to help you. So as a 16-year-old boy, I was running up and down, trying to make ends meet for my mother and so on. But when that happened, when I finally got my money, it was when they broke up. And I only got 14,000. But there was the first fridge that we bought for the family. But that event taught me a lot. How to be yourself, how not to be afraid, because when you turn around, everybody, in fact, I went to the homes of all the people who were supposed to, in the same workforce as my father, and everybody chased me out. So can you imagine? You are being shunned, here, there. So when go back to school, want to give up, but somehow or other, you say no. If you believe that this is the right thing to do it. So that's how. I never regret, but I went through hell there. But it was a good experience, and I think it carried my life, my lifestyle, maybe to Parliament, to where I work in Amar-Kane Clinic. And I've always believed in that. Do it if you believe in it.
Dr. Tan Cheng Bock, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you. That was Dr. Tan Cheng Bock, who has declared his interest in contesting in the next presidential election. This has been IQ Hit List, and please find out who else has been on IQ's hit list, who else has been interviewed. Log on to our website, www.iq.sg, to watch out for our next IQ Hit List. Click the links to see other guests who have appeared on our previous episodes. Post your comments on social media and let us know if there's someone you'd like us to interview on IQ Hit List.